not call me a minority. There's more Chinese in any other country in the world. India is second, China is number one in terms of population size. So he said, in numerical ratio, I'm not a minority to anybody. I'm Edward Sue, Chinese American, medical student in Arlington, and I have a name. Call me by my name. I never forgot, and I never forgot. There's no country called minority, and I'm not lesser than in numbers than anyone else. So sometimes kids make you think.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you remember seeing or participating in any local demonstrations such as
Oh God,
sit-ins,
yes.
freedom
Oh
rides,
yeah.
or
Oh,
marches?
absolutely. I did the stay. I helped to organize Stay Up for Freedom. We kept Boston students out of school 2 years straight for 3 days, thousands of them, and we had them come to freedom schools in St. Mark Congregational Church, Elliott Congregational Church, St. Anne's Episcopal Church, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, all kinds of Baptist and other churches, 12th Baptist Church. We had freedom schools there, and white kids from the suburbs came. We kept parents kept their kids and sent them to freedom schools. We didn't just keep them out of school. We had freedom schools. We talked about racism and the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, and First, Second, and other amendments, free speech, and all that. We had the press. I remember Dexter Urey came over from the Globe, and Senator Ed Brooks was around then, and certainly Miss Cass and Melvin King. They became Representative Melvin King, Ruth Batson. Later, out of that grew Exodus.
How did the community react to?
Some of them were afraid. A lot of them joined in. We had marches. We marched. The first time we marched with Martin Luther King, nobody came. Just a few ministers. Mel King, myself, Michael Haynes, the Episcopal ministers, Father Hasty, Father Breeden, Father James Breeden, my minister who's now dead. Just a few people came. Chuck Turner, a lot of people who, not around, people like Sarah Ann and Elma Lewis and Ruth Batson, they were all part of it. But it had to grow in people's minds because it was FBI, the CIA, and those people were around taking pictures of us. Usually they see them, just like in the movies, they have those overcoats and those slouch hats, and they're taking pictures. I mean, of who's in the parade. A lot of people were afraid of him. Oh, what are you going to be afraid of? You're black. You're not going to go be white tomorrow. You might as well face up to. You can't change who you are. And if you don't stand up for you, who will? Mel said, if I'm not for, he was quoting Martin Buber, he's a rabbi, a theologian in the Jewish community. He said, if I'm not for me, who will be? And if not now, when? And so we said, hey, we're for ourselves. We want our kids to have better education. Schools were huge classes. I taught 43 kids when I taught. I had 36 seats. I had books from 1920. I had no pencils, no crayons, no paper, no audiovisual equipment. We had DC current. It was so bad at the old Louise May Alcott, built in 1840 something. Oldest school in Boston. It was cold water, no hot water, overhead pole chain toilets. And then you go out to Newton. You go to Brookline. You go to West Roxbury, you're somewhere, and you see all these beautiful schools, are nice schools. They don't have to be new, but they have books and maps. Why this room is so loaded with stuff? Because good schools had stuff in them. They had all kinds of resources and materials and maps and music and just the things and tools that a teacher needs to teach. They had gyms, they had music rooms, they had orchestras, they had choruses, they had field trips, they had small classes. We didn't have anything. You had debating teams. All we had was ourselves and our principal and our teachers, and we had outside fire escapes. We had a fire, you did a fire drill. You had to go outside down this cage, and some kids were terrified of, and the last 10 feet you had to jump. Somebody had to catch you below because the ladder didn't go to the bottom because it was frozen in place.
Was this school segregated or?
It was poor kids. Mostly black, with a lot of poor white kids in it. There were a lot of segregated schools in Boston. My kids went to no schools that were segregated, but there was about maybe third black. I looked at my daughter's 4th grade class. There was only a few black kids. There were no black teachers. I was the only black pupil adjustment counselor in the system. First, last, and only. I aced the exam, number 1. They had to hire me because they wanted to get the great city's money, which required a colored counselor, and there I was. In order to get that $600,000, they had to hire me. I was on the list, number 1.
Oh
Going to
my
take the.
goodness.
If you don't get hired, then they take the exam again 3 years. And what you do, you go to the board of examiners and you get all the back exams. You go home and get your blue books and you answer all the questions. You've read all the literature. So when you come, they'll make that many new questions up. So
Yeah.
I did. I topped the exam and I got called for an interview, and they asked me all kinds of stupid questions.
Although the school was integrated, did you still feel any racial tension because you were like one of the only black people there, or were there still racial tensions between the children? Although
You
they,
mean in Boston?
yeah,
Not South, not in the Southern school. I went to a Southern high school. I went to a Southern, I went to a historically black university, and I went to a segregated black high school, one of the best in the United States, Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School, without peer. Almost all the teachers were practically, PhDs and top of the line. Yeah, you run into it. It wasn't the kids so much. In Canton, I remember, I won't say her name. She was from the South. She, one day, Nancy was her first name. You went down the basement to go to the bathroom, and she came down to the Elliott School in Canton, and I was coming out of they had those wooden doors, and she turned. She said they shouldn't. People shouldn't have to go to school with niggers. Decent people shouldn't have to go to school with niggers. She was from the South, and her parents were. And every time I looked at her, she had really thick lips. She was light skinned, but I suspected that her family was mixed with black people, and she was trying to hide it. I always suspected that because she looked more like color folks than the color folks I know. My father was, Irish. I mean, his mother was Irish. His father was pitch black, but the dominant skin color was white. So all my aunts and daddy looked like the Irish. Grandpa, handsome man. Oh, handsome guy. His wife was Irish. She died. I have no pictures of Grandma Julia, but I could see what she must have looked like by my aunts' faces. But when genes mix, hair and eyes, dark is the dominant gene. Your darker genes are the dominant skin color and hair color. In skin, light is the dominant gene. So that's why usually when people mix, unless you have 4 sets of parents who are 3 of them are all of a darker shade or a whiter shade, that will determine the skin color. When you take genetics in college, or if you have it in high school.
Oh yeah, I took biology last year.
Then you may have had it with the fruit flies.
Yeah.
Oh, do you remember that?
Yes.
Everybody's a fruit flies.
Oh my goodness, when we did that, it was so bad because some of them they didn't really knock out from the stuff the message you gave them, so they started flying around the classroom.
I know. Did you have to pin them?
Oh my god, I really don't like bugs too much.
How did you hold them down?
It was more like my lab partner did more of the
She did the pins
handling stuff. Yeah, but I took.
You have to get used to that.
Yeah, I know. And then we had to dissect a fetal pig.
We did a frog. Oh no, we did a cat with a slimy skin. Ugh,
God.
yuck. Oh, but a fetal pig is little. That's like a baby almost.
Yeah.
It's like a human baby.
Yeah, it was so.
Why did it smell? Formaldehyde?
It smelled, yeah.
Yeah, well, we had a cat with skin on it. Fur. Gross.
Oh my gosh.
College zoology.
But do you mind telling a story of when you were 4 and your dad was bringing up thing?
Oh
again,
yeah,
so I can have it
we
on
were going to
video?
the Houghton School, which is kindergarten, and my parents were in front of me. They were carrying my sister, and they had her by the hand, and Michael was a baby. I was probably 4 because Michael was 4. I was born in 31. This is like 1934, 35. And I'm coming up, and a boy's coming down, and he shoves me. He said, we don't want niggers in the school. He could use the word nigger. And I remember my father turned around because I screamed, and he knocked me down. My head hit the corner of the cement stair, and I still have the scar. No hair grows there.
Oh my
Blood was pouring on down my head. And he ran down, and he was saying, nigger, 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 It was the first time I heard the word. I almost didn't know. I just knew the sound of it, though his tone was hateful. And the fact that he hurt me, I tied the feeling and the hurt together.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky in that we had wonderful teachers. Miss Seavey, I had for 5th and 6th grade. All the teachers I had, Miss Farrington at the Ponkapog for 2 weeks, she double promoted me. Miss Seavey I had for 5th and 6th grade. And Miss Sullivan, she was 7th grade, but she wasn't always that fair. But I got all A's with her, but she wasn't You could tell she wasn't that comfortable. I was the only black girl. And then Miss Ryford, who was the principal, was the best. But she had gone to Smith College and she was quite different. But that was the only time that I remember when I was young that they used it. But in a black high school, you wouldn't hear that. You would, because no one was allowed to use that word in my black high school ever. You couldn't use the word nigger. That was a no-no.
Yeah.
Not like you hear on the Metco bus. You get your mouth washed out. She asked me some good questions.
Did you get all your questions
No.
answered?
No, she's got a couple more.
Yeah,
I have a couple. You have a couple more?
yeah.
Okay.
She's got a lot of questions.
Good questions.
Yes.
Smart young lady,
She
right?
sure is.
That's
You know,
right.
things I wouldn't think of.
Yeah.
You know, it would made me think, because, you know, often we were the only black kids.
Yeah.
You know, then until I went to Dunbar. Now that was a black high school, black teachers. I was in heaven. See, the atmosphere. It wasn't that I didn't have good white teachers, because that's not true. There was only one or two teachers who I knew who were racist or not friendly, but Canton schools had good to Dearborn was heaven. I was in the A section. I had Miss Campbell, Miss DeMurphy for math, Miss Murphy for music, and Miss Abbott for French. I remember my teachers' names because they were so good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Miss Vincent Saka for violin. Oh, you know, I remember teachers, because teachers are a really important part of your life when you're in school. And if you have good teachers, you'll remember them.
Yeah, no matter who they are.
Yeah, they do.
So she's going to finish this with
Yeah,
you.
whenever she has to leave now.
No, this is her dad. This is Mr. Klahar.
You don't mind. I know, but you
Dad,
don't
we're
mind
in the
saying
video
you.
right now.
I remember you.
Yeah, I know.
No, he was.
Yeah, you remember a long time.
Now, you know who his principal was?
Who?
Tell.
I'm sorry, Miss Catherine.
Oh, you're talking James, Catherine,
Miss
my
Catherine
friend, my
James,
best friend.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, her best friend.
Oh, that's my best friend.
Oh, the only
Wasn't
thing I could
she
remember.
Barbara the Bates? Was she at the Bates or the Cannon? You with the Bates?
The Bates.
Yeah, she was at the Cannon too. That is one of the best public school teachers I have ever seen. I walked into her classroom as a pupil adjustment counselor. I was told there was a girl that needed glasses. And there was no teacher in the room, and everybody was complete silence, and somebody got up and said, "May I take your hat and coat?" I said, "Well, yes, but I don't think I have to say it." "Well, let me hang it up." I said, "All right." They took my hat and they said, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" I said, "Well, no, I'm not hungry or anything, but we have it if you want it." No teacher around. She had trained these children to greet guests if they came in.
Yes.
She was in with a horrible
That's what,
principal.
that's what I
Unbelievable.
expected at Young Achievers all the time.
No,
If kids
she wasn't.
didn't do that, they
I went to schools where they called you nigger in Boston. I'll tell you that. The Woodrow Wilson, I'd drive up in my car and they'd say, "Nigger, bitch," out the window. And I knew the teachers heard it because I'd go by that floor in that room and see the teachers in the room. And I didn't know the principal, they didn't care. This is when Boston, I was the only black counselor in the history of the school system. There were no pupil adjustment counselors. They couldn't avoid me because they wanted that $600,000 of Great Cities money. As I was number one, and they had to have a colored counselor. So they had to go by the ranking. So they had to take me because I was going to take the exam again. You take it every 3 years, but you have to know the systemic structure of your institution so you can overcome. Now it took Judge Garrity to change the system. I was in there before Judge John G. O'Brien, myself. Of all the 7,000 teachers,